Everyone, welcome back. Today's first-round encounter in Strasbourg may appear unremarkable at first, but it has the potential to develop into one of the more intriguing contests of the clay court season. Two players who are unfamiliar with one another. Two diametrically opposed tennis ideologies. When Alex Eala takes the court against Oleksandra Oliynykova, only one style will prevail. This is more than just a power versus defense conflict. It's an identity, discipline, and patience test. The entire match could be lost by the first person to quit their natural game. Alex Eala, a rising Filipina celebrity with real momentum following her impressive performances in Rome, is on one side. Eala thrives when she can control the pace and force opponents into awkward positions. She is aggressive, bold, and constantly attempting to strike early in rallies. When her timing is perfect, she can dominate matches and make the court seem very small to those on the other side. However, the issue of waiting on the other side of the internet is rather different. The Ukrainian qualifier Oleksandra Oliynykova has based her entire strategy on perseverance and dissatisfaction. She maintains tempo, prolongs rallies, and compels opponents to engage in protracted physical altercations that gradually erode patience and confidence. Every point becomes a chore, and every rally becomes mental warfare, so placing her might seem like hitting tennis balls into damp sand. That's precisely why, going into Strasbourg, this meeting seems so exciting. The last significant warm-up competition prior to Roland Garros is the Internationals to Strasbourg, a WTA 500 event held on outdoor clay. Every player here is aware of the significance of gaining confidence before to Paris, since ranking points, prize money, and momentum are all at stake. Eala, who is presently ranked 42nd in the globe, sees this competition as yet another fantastic chance to further establish herself on clay. She has now participated in 5 clay court competitions this season, and she seems to be getting more at ease and dangerous on the surface every week. There is more to Strasbourg than merely getting ready for the French Open. She has the opportunity to demonstrate that she is one of the most dangerous rising players on the tour. Oliynykova, who is now ranked 68th in the world, is continuing the most successful phase of her professional career with this competition. She has risen more than 200 ranking places in the past year thanks to perseverance, dedication, and consistency. Even though she doesn't get as much attention as Eala, her ascent has been hard to overlook. Neither of the women came here by chance. They earned their spot by taking quite different routes and playing entirely distinct tennis styles. Eala was originally scheduled to participate in qualifying in Strasbourg, but the Filipina sensation was put straight into the main draw following Hailey Baptiste's withdrawal. She now has the ideal opportunity to approach this event with renewed vigor and increasing self-assurance thanks to that unforeseen opportunity. The key question at hand is whether Oliynykova can gradually drag Eala into the kind of taxing clay court struggle where patience is more important than strength, or if Eala can impose her aggressive style early and dictate the rhythm of the match. Because skill by itself is rarely sufficient in matches like this one. The player who maintains mental toughness under pressure typically wins. Alex Eala's immediate placement in the Strasbourg main draw following Hailey Baptiste's withdrawal may be considered fortunate by some. However, upon closer inspection, it became clear that Eala's actions in Rome the previous week had earned that opportunity. After a difficult 3-set match against Magdalena Frech, the Filipina star overcame Olympic silver medalist Wong Sinu in straight sets. She then challenged world number 2 Elena Rybakina to a much more tough match than the final score indicated, losing 6-4, 6-3 after displaying glimpses of the gutsy shot-making that continues to garner notice throughout the tour. Eala has a 4-3 record on clay this season thanks to his run in Rome. Not overbearing, but unquestionably motivating. More significantly, it demonstrated clear development from a player who has publicly acknowledged that she is still learning how to play clay at the professional level. Oleksandra Oliynykova, meanwhile, made it to Strasbourg via qualifying and looked quite convincing. In another calm performance, she defeated former top 30 player Julia Putintseva 6-4, 6-4 after demolishing Ksenia Efremova 6-1, 6-2. Although those scores might seem normal on paper, they don't adequately convey how uncomfortable Olynykova's style of play can become when an opponent is forced into a complete best-of-3 set match, where every point carries actual pressure. Her technique gradually draws players away from their favorite patterns and compels them to engage in drawn-out, annoying exchanges where rhythm totally vanishes. That's precisely what makes this contest so intriguing from a tactical standpoint. Eala makes shots by nature. She is always drawn to a fence by her intuition. She wants to create angles, go inside the baseline, change the pace, and create points where she has complete control over all crucial decisions. Because the ball moves at a pace and height that is ideal for her timing and attacking strokes, her aggressive persona fits flawlessly on quicker hard courts. However, clay radically alters the situation. Defenders have more time to recover between shots because the ball sits higher and moves more slowly. Theoretically, an attacking player should be better prepared with more time. Since aggression must be maintained throughout longer rallies rather than delivered in brief, explosive bursts, it really frequently poses a much more challenging challenge. When competing against someone like Oliynykova, patience becomes crucial. Eala cannot afford to rush or become alarmed if winners do not appear immediately. When opponents are overhit or irritated by the extra ball that keeps coming back, the Ukrainian flourishes. She wants matches to be cognitively taxing, repetitive, and weighty. Eala, on the other hand, desires vigor, pace, and initiative. Thus, it's possible that this game may soon turn into a struggle over who can dominate the court's emotional pace. If Eala discovers her range early and controls her hostility, she is equipped to seize power. However, Oliynykova might gradually transform the game into the precise type of gritty clay court that she enjoys if the rallies start to drag on and frustration starts to set in. Throughout the entire clay court season, Alex Eala has found that adjustment to be the most difficult. One of the most difficult changes for players who are typically aggressive on the surface is learning to remain aggressive without being reckless. She now has to contend with an opponent whose whole strategy is to exploit that vulnerability. The description of Oleksandra Oliynykova as an unorthodox player is a wonderful fit. Her approach is centered on defensive retrievals that extend rallies well beyond the comfort zone of most baseline hitters, high looping moonballs that land close to the baseline, and a counterpunching mentality that relies more on frustration than raw power. She isn't looking for outstanding winners all the time. Rather, she waits for opponents to become impatient and destroy themselves due to the stress of constant repetition. At the Australian Open earlier this year, we witnessed a prime illustration of it. Oleynykova's refusal to give Madison Keys, the reigning champion, perfect time on the ball allowed her to take an unexpected 4-0 lead. In the end, Keys resolved the issue and prevailed, but it took significant tactical changes and a lot more work than most elite players would willing to put in a first-round match. The biggest uncertainty about this encounter is directly related to that performance, which demonstrated how disruptive Oliynykova can get when opponents fail to assert themselves early. Can Alex Eala escape falling into the same trap that Oliynykova sets for almost all of her opponents? Because the trap appears as a very faint dot on paper. Oleynykova's serve doesn't appear particularly threatening. Her average first serve speed is about 139 km per hour, which is insufficient to challenge the majority of players in the top 100. She only wins almost 60% of those first serve points, while having an exceptionally high first serve rate of about 77%. Her service games seem susceptible statistically, and in many matches they actually are, but that fragility is frequently the hook. Opponents relax a little, break her service early, and start to think the match is headed for an easy straight-set triumph. Oliynykova typically becomes most harmful at that point. She is not going to panic. Mentally, she won't go away. Rather, she prolongs points indefinitely, delves deeper into rallies, and gradually draws opponents into emotionally and physically taxing conflicts. Players who anticipated speedy service holds are now need to make 15, 16, and occasionally even 17 shots in order to score 1 point. The rhythm vanishes, the timing gets uncomfortable, the ball arrives at strange heights, and eventually irritation sets in. Begins construction. At that point, games against Oliynykova frequently take a completely different turn. Because it takes much more effort and focus than anticipated to maintain serve against a return approach, players who first appeared at ease suddenly feel tense in their own service games. Every game begins to seem burdensome. Every rally seems to go on longer than it should. And it's really hard to get rid of Oliynykova once doubt starts to creep in. For Eala, controlling that emotional strain could be just as crucial as controlling the match's tactical aspects. Because she has the tools to breach Oleynykova's protective wall if she maintains her discipline, believes in her aggression, and refrains from overhitting out of frustration. However, if impatience takes control, this could easily turn into the kind of tough clay court match where the Ukrainian qualifier has an increasing advantage as the game goes on. During Oleynykova's tenure in Rome, this pattern was already apparent. She easily overcame Petro Martic 6-1, 6-3, and then totally threw off 18th seed Clara Tausson's rhythm by taking a commanding 6-1, 3-1 lead until Tausson had to retire due to a back injury. Tausson never appeared at ease, but even before the retirement, Oliynykova had obviously seized charge of the game both tactically and mentally. The timing was off, the speed was gone, and the rallies were going precisely as Oliynykova had intended. However, the entire atmosphere abruptly altered when they faced Linda Noskova in the following round. In a performance that demonstrated the best strategy for defeating Oliynykova, Noskova defeated her 6-1, 6-3. She didn't rush, she didn't panic, and most crucially, she didn't let Oleynykova's slower grinding pace control the match's emotional flow. Noskova continued to play aggressive tennis on her own terms while remaining patient. She struck a mix between controlled defense and discipline, and the match became much simpler once Oliynykova was unable to emotionally torment her opponent. Alex Eala must precisely adhere to the formula. Whether she can keep up that level of discipline on the clay court for the duration of a match is the true question. Rome's optimistic signals indicate that she may be prepared. Eala was significantly more patient in building points against Wang Xinyu rather than continuously looking for quick wins. She appeared prepared to wait for the ideal opportunity, carefully select her moments, and construct rallies. Then, she played against Elena Rybakina from the first to the final point without ever seeming overpowered by the situation or the match's tempo. Most significantly, compared to earlier in the season, her movement on clay appeared noticeably more confident and natural. Eala told Tennis Channel after Rome that she was at last starting to get comfortable on clay and that she thought she could do well there. Because it is based on growth and experience rather than naive hope, that kind of confidence is important. There is still a significant issue, but players who genuinely believe in their improvement are frequently considerably more prepared to manage awkward opponents like Oliynykova than players who rely solely on talent. Oliynykova, who is 5 feet 10 inches tall, moves incredibly well for her height. She can cover large portions of the court with her long strides, which also make challenging defensive retrievals appear surprisingly simple. She can reach shots that would typically result in points against opponents who are shorter thanks to her wingspan. Additionally, she gains the extra fractions of a second required to prolong rallies on clay, where the ball naturally bounces higher and moves more slowly, making her defensive strengths even more effective. Suddenly, what looks to be a clear winner floats back over the net once more. Additionally, players may gradually become mentally exhausted by this constant pressure. There are a few particular things that must happen for Alex Eala to win this match. When rallies take place outside of her comfort zone, she cannot grow agitated. Instead of attacking out of desperation, she will need to use discipline. Even if service games take longer than anticipated or break opportunities vanish, she must maintain emotional composure. Above all, she must continue to rely on her attacking instincts without letting impatience drive her to make low-percentage errors. Eala has the capacity to dominate this matchup if she can successfully strike a balance between attack and patience. However, this match could become far more perilous for the Filipina star than many anticipate if Oliynykova is able to push the competition into a slow, draining rhythm full of uncertainty and indecision. It is evident from the first games that a number of things must occur for Alex Eala to win this match. Firstly, she must prevent Oleksandra Oliynikova's favored rhythm from being affected by the match's pace. The trap is that the Ukrainian becomes more at ease the longer rallies are slow, monotonous, and emotionally taxing. Eala must step confidently within the baseline rather than drifting backward, take the ball early whenever feasible, and play her forehand forcefully enough to induce abrupt direction changes that even Oleynykova's outstanding court coverage cannot reliably recover. Second, Eala must utilize the internet wisely yet decisively. Although Oleynykova's high-looping moonballs are challenging to attack from the baseline, they can become vulnerable if an opponent detects the trajectory early and advances with conviction. This is one flaw in her defensive strategy. She can lose time and stop those looping shots from repeatedly restarting the rally if a player is prepared to close fast and volley strongly. The net might become a crucial weapon in this game if Eala takes advantage of those opportunities, but the biggest obstacle might be that if Eala breaks serve early, she can't let the scoreboard give her a false sense of confidence. Because Makova's entire game is based on perseverance and endurance, she has consistently demonstrated that early deficiencies mean virtually nothing against her. She endures challenging stretches, absorbs pressure, and patiently waits for opponents to tire physically or emotionally. This explains why a lot of players feel at ease playing against her in the early stages of games, only to find themselves stuck in challenging service games later on. Another intriguing aspect of this conflict is the surface itself. Strasbourg clay functions somewhat differently than Rome's courts. Strasbourg offers a more classic European clay court setting that naturally rewards patience, consistency, and physical endurance, whereas the Foro Italico tends to play a little faster due to its surface. Composition and upkeep. Oleynykova's tough defensive style is somewhat favored by those circumstances. An aggressive player with genuine shot-making talent like Eala cannot be totally neutralized by the difference. It just means that it will take more effort, discipline, and consistent focus to force herself on rallies here than it would on a quicker hard court. The psychological aspect of the encounter is another. Eala's competitive success against world number 2 Elena Rybakina in Rome gives her confidence when she comes in Strasbourg. Such matches are significant because they create a lasting impression. She now knows what it's like to play tennis at the highest level and, more importantly, she feels like she belongs there. When pressure starts to build, that experience can be a big help. Oliynykova has a very different emotional stance going into this competition. She felt sharp, loose, and totally unprepared as she finished qualifying with 2 easy victories. Despite being undervalued, ignored, bored, or disregarded for a large portion of her career, she has continued to rise in the rankings. Because she plays without worrying about failing, her freedom makes her dangerous. She never expresses regret for making people uncomfortable and fully loves her unusual approach. The fact that these 2 players have never faced one another before may be the most crucial factor of all. The head-to-head is entirely blank. This is important because players don't really get Oliynikova's style until they see it in action. While watching a video helps you be ready mentally, it doesn't help you get ready for the ball's unusual height, spin, and rhythm once the game starts. Eala will most likely need some time to acclimate over the first few games. She should eventually take charge of the match if she adjusts fast, becomes comfortable with her routines, and has faith in her self-control. However, things could get much more problematic than anticipated if she spends too much time looking for timing as Oliynykova drags, rallies, and goes deeper and deeper. Overall, I think Alex Eala should still prevail in this match, but the difference is much smaller than the rankings indicate. Oleynykova's unique style has a way of leveling the playing field against opponents who have never faced it before, even though Eala is ranked 26 spots higher. This season, the Ukrainian has already defeated a player ranked in the top 20 and challenged a number of strong opponents. Rankings, reputations, and expectations don't matter to her. With her temporary facial tattoos, her looping ground strokes, and her unwavering faith that offbeat tennis may still triumph over contemporary power, she enters the court.